Hi everyone, Laurie here from Valley View Retreat. As you can see, it's raining, it's really miserable outside, even though it's still beautiful. When it's weather like this, Mark gets the craving for soup, and he's inside now making an amazing soup.
Laurie, your soup's ready.
Coming! Looks like we're going to get some amazing soup for lunch. See you later. Bye. I just thought, wouldn't it be amazing if he would actually show you how to make one of his amazing soups? It's an idea. I better ask him.
Hi and welcome to Valley View Retreat, our wonderful home here in the Sierra de las Nieves mountains in southern Spain. This video is unlike most of our other videos in that we're going to do something on cooking. And given the fact that everybody is in the middle of this pandemic and some of us are finding it difficult to actually make a living or any income, frugal cooking is what we're going to focus on. And for the off-gridder, there are two methods of cooking that really are the off-gridder's best friend. And those two methods of cooking are
The pressure cooker
and
the slow cooker.
This video is going to be on the pressure cooker. Today it's particularly important because it's miserable outside, we can't do any work outside. So we thought we'd do this video, and it's pretty cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pretty cold.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is not just introduce the pressure cooker, but we're going to actually have you cook with us our famous Valley View Retreat carrot and tarragon soup. You don't know what
It's
unfortunately, yes, we're the only ones who are going to get to taste it. But we'll give you the recipe so you can try it out yourself.
Yeah.
And both the recipe and some further information on the pressure cooker will be on our website, and I'll link that down below. Do we want to get cooking? Well, no, I'm having my coffee. And not only having my coffee, I'm going to have a ginger biscuit. You go with ginger biscuit. We can't open the ginger biscuits, did we? These ginger biscuits are from our local supermarket.
Yeah.
And they're about 160 or 150.
Yeah, 160, 150.
For this whole tub. The tub's reusable and the biscuits are amazing. They're ginger biscuits. Unfortunately, because they're only the two of us and one of us eats more ginger biscuits than the other, don't know who that could be, they do tend to get stale after a while. So what do you do with stale ginger biscuits?
You make ginger cake.
You don't make ginger cake. You make the best ginger cake you ever tasted. But that's a recipe for another day. So let's get cooking. So this is a pressure cooker, and basically it's just a pot with a special lid. And they come in various types. Some of them have a screw down lid, but this one has a twist lock lid. In other words, you put the lid on, push it down, and when you turn it, it actually locks it solid. Inside the lid, it has a rubber ring, and this rubber ring forms a gas seal. What that means is that when the liquid in the pot actually boils and starts to produce steam, the steam can't get out. And because the steam can't get out, the pressure builds up inside the pot. And that pressure leads to very, very high heat, and obviously the increase in atmospheric pressure also. So the food inside is cooked at very high pressure and very high temperature, which means it cooks very, very quickly. When I say very quickly, what I mean is you can cook an entire chicken in 15 minutes. You can cook black beans in 5 minutes. It's an amazingly efficient way of cooking. It reduces your energy consumption by up to 70%, and it cooks food about 2/3 faster than a conventional hob stovetop with a pot. And that's why it's one of the off-gridders' most important tools when it comes to frugal eating. It saves energy, it cooks food really well and really quickly, and it also helps retain far more vitamins and minerals than if you were boiling. So what's different about using this and using a normal stovetop pot is the amount of liquid that you would actually use. Because we're cooking with steam and not cooking with boiling water, you need very little water, about 8 ounces, probably no more than that, which we're talking about in the pot, no more than about this, no more than about an inch, probably a bit less. When we're steaming, we use this, which is called a trivet or a trivet. And this sits inside the pressure cooker and keeps the food away from the actual liquid, because we're cooking with steam, we're not boiling. So you put your water in, then you put the trivet in, open it out and put your food on top. At that point you put the lid on, put it on the stove, and when it's on the stove we wait for it to reach its correct temperature, and you'll know it's reached its correct temperature because a little button pops up to let you know, and if you leave it on it will start to slightly hiss. At that point you need to turn it down until it stops hissing and just leave it there. That's when your timer starts. So your food cooking has started at the point where the pressure has actually built up inside, and we have a look at examples of exactly how that works. On this particular pressure cooker we have 2 settings. We have a high setting and a low setting, and different foods, depending on their consistency, will cook better on one or other of those settings. And there's a complete list of almost every food you can possibly think of on the website, and the link to that is down below. All the foods are there, and the cooking times, and whether it needs a higher or low pressure. Okay, so let's get on and make our fabulous Valley View carrot and tarragon soup, and you'll see just how well this baby works.
Welcome to Cook with Mark and Laurie, and for the this recipe you're going to need 4 or 5 carrots, medium-sized potato, pepper, milk, butter, stock cubes, 2 stock cubes, tarragon, water, a knife, a peeler, a hand blender, a spatula, and a jug. And of course, your trusted pressure cooker.
You can make this soup with whatever the cheapest veg is that you can find at that particular point in time. For us, it's carrots. Carrots at the moment are running about the equivalent of maybe 50 cents a pound. So they're probably the cheapest veg that we can get. When you buy them, if you're buying them in your local market, you'll get them in a bag or something, so it's not an issue. If you're buying them in the supermarket, they tend to come in a plastic bag. If you leave them in the plastic bag and store them in your fridge or whatever, very quickly you'll start to get condensation on the inside of the bag, and the carrots will start to turn black. The way to avoid that is, as soon as you get home, open the bag, take some kitchen roll and put the kitchen roll into the bag, between the bag itself and the carrots, and do that on both sides, and then lay them in your refrigerator. They will last probably 5 times longer if you actually do that. Change the kitchen roll whenever it gets damp enough to squeeze moisture out of. and they'll last pretty much as long as you need them to. Okay, so let's get to the recipe. For this one we're using carrots. Carrots, you have the option of peeling them or just washing them. It really depends on where you're buying them from and how much you trust what you've been told about them. Because these are coming from the supermarket, I'm going to peel these, take the skin off, because I have no idea what they were actually treated with. We're using a peeler, which does the job very quickly. And we're peeling into a container which we're going to either put on the compost or give to your chickens, or depending on the veg that you've got. Once the carrots are actually peeled, we'll top and tail them, take the tops and the bottoms off, and then we'll cut them into chunks. And the chunks will be about maybe 3 centimeters, a bit over an inch. And at that point we'll peel the potato and cut that into chunks about the same. Okay, so that's the veg chopped, and that's about the size. The size really isn't that important because it's going to end up as a soup. But it will cook faster if you actually cut it into chunks about this size. A couple of things I should mention. This is not a vegetarian or vegan recipe, but you can do this as a vegan or vegetarian recipe. Instead of using butter, you can use olive oil. Instead of using milk, you can use soya milk or something, or almond milk, something like that. And what else in it? And stock cubes, you can use either vegetable stock or vegetable stock cubes. We tend to use chicken stock cubes. They're very reasonable and very tasty. When we use stock cubes, I don't use any salt in the soup, because obviously there's a fair amount of salt in the stock cubes. If later on it needs some salt, each individual can add it. So let's get on with cooking it. If we're steaming vegetables, we use, as I said, the trivet. And what we do is we put about an inch of water in, put the trivet in, and put the vegetables in on top. When I'm making soup, I'm not using water to start with. I'm actually only using the vegetables and some butter. So we don't need the trivet. And what I do with the pot is we start off by putting it on the heat. And I add about 50 grams, I know it sounds like a lot, but about 50 grams of butter. And what that looks like is this. It's a lot of butter. You don't need all of this. If you're using olive oil, you would need considerably less. But we like our soup with a lot of butter in it. Okay, so cube this. And we add that to the pot. When the butter has melted, we take some fresh or dried tarragon. I'm using this much, which would be about 2 teaspoonfuls, and then I'm rubbing that into the butter. Once the butter is melted and we put the tarragon in, I take one of the stock cubes and crumble that into the pot. Still running now, isn't it? Yeah. Once I've added that, I then add the veg. And we stir. Okay. Once the veg has been thoroughly coated with the butter, and remember we've turned the heat down, so we don't want the butter to burn or to go brown, we just want it to melt. We've coated the veg with the butter, and now we put the lid of the pressure cooker on. These are hard veg, both potatoes and carrots, so we're actually going to put it on a high setting and turn up the heat. I don't want the veg to burn or the butter to burn, so I'm going to, every few minutes or so, shake the pot to stop it from sticking to the bottom. And we're just going to wait for... Oh, it's happened already. As you can see, this is the button that tells us when there's pressure, and that button has popped up, and if we push on this we can hear the steam that's already being formed. We leave that until that builds up to the point where we can actually hear a mild hiss, which means that we've got full pressure and it's starting to escape. Okay, I don't know if you can hear that, but it's reached its pressure. If I shake it, you can hear the steam escape. At that point, you need to turn this down to its lowest setting. Or if its lowest setting is still not low enough and steam is still escaping, actually move it to a ring with less power and turn that down to its lowest level. For this veg, it will probably be about 7 minutes before it's soft enough to cook. While that's actually doing its thing and getting soft, we're going to mix up the stock. For this, we don't need any hot liquids. We're going to put about a third of a jug, this jug is a litre, of milk, and we're going to top that up with water. Into that we're going to put 1 stock cube. With these particular stock cubes you don't need hot liquids, they'll crumble straight in. And we add about another half a teaspoon of the tarragon. We're going to rub that in. To this I'm going to add some black pepper, and that's it. That stock's ready to go in as soon as the vegetables are softened. So, how much pressure is there in a pressure cooker? A lot! This has now been on for 7 minutes. 7 minutes since I put it on the small ring. I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to move the pot over here. Now before we open the lid, we've got to relieve the pressure. And here, this one has a button that you push and the steam comes out. You can accelerate how quickly the steam comes out by running it under cold water if you're one of those people who think that water grows on trees. Otherwise, just have a bit of patience and just keep the button down and it'll be fine. Okay, you can hear it's almost relieved. We'll know all the pressure's relieved because this button here will disappear. And there it goes. So now we know that it's okay to open the lid. Take the lid off. And this is what we've got inside. We can see how soft this veg is here. So that's done, cooked. 7 minutes from the moment that we moved it onto the small ring until the moment we took it off. Can't get much faster than that. At this point it's time to blend it, and we're going to add just a cupful of the fluid. Take the hand blender and start to break it down. When it's at about this consistency, we can start to add the rest of the liquid. It's up to you how fine you actually want this soup. That's how we like it. Okay, so the soup's now blended, and what we're going to do is put the heat back on. Pop it on. And now we wait. At this point, this soup is actually ready. I'm going to wait until the little button pops up, then turn it off, and that soup will then be ready to go. Okay, so the button has come up again, so we now know that the soup is hot. I'm going to turn that off, take it off over here, and release the steam. Take the lid off, and there's our soup. We like to serve ours with crusty bread. What's that smell like, Laurie?
Gorgeous.
And a little milk. And we'll swap the bowls. So, thanks for joining us on Cook with
Mark and Laurie.
And next time we'll, I don't know what we'll do. Next time we'll introduce you to the slow cooker, another must-have for anyone living off-grid on solar. Bon appetit. One of the issues that some people seem to have with using a pressure cooker is that if you cook meat, it stays very pale. And what they don't realise is that you can actually sear the meat, saute the meat, before you actually put it in the pressure cooker, which means it's pre-coloured. So the meat is cooked perfectly. It will be as tender as any meat you've ever had, and it will look as if it's come off the grill. So there's a tip for you.